You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast, and its mission is to dissect and discuss horror films, both classic and old, and new. We have a little bit of a new thing happening here. Last year, for those podcasters that listened out to us, we had the opportunity of getting some early advanced screenings of the Sydney Underground Film Festival films that were screening at the time. But we've gone one step better this year for the 2018 festival, in that we've able to also get our hands on some of these cool horror short films that are coming out. And with that, we have the opportunity to speak with some of the directors behind these cool little horror shorts, as I said. First up, I'm going to be chatting with the director for the short film Granny, which described here as a young man who flees for his life when the beloved grandmother he attempted to put in a home goes on a murderous rampage. Without further ado, I'll introduce you to the director, David Burrows. David, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. So good to be here.
Look, it's pretty exciting, isn't it? Like to get this short film up and running. As I said, it's part of the what will for your film will be part of the WTF segment of the of the screenings of the stuff. It will be screened for those that want to go down and head and catch these films at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, the 16th of September. But before we get to that, I guess just to kind of get a bit of background to the movie itself, I did give it a little bit of a blurb, but in your own words, how would you describe what Granny is about?
Oh, yeah, I mean, look, we've kind of been putting it like you sort of put it. It's really about a granny that goes on a murderous rampage. I mean, we were very much sort of influenced by, like, the Ozploitation films that this country kind of generated, in the sort of 70s and 80s, and they all kind of had these kind of like crazy sort of premises at their kind of heart. And so, during this time, Dean Burr and I co-wrote it.
Yep.
We were working at projectionists, and we would just hang up in the projection room for shifts and kind of pitch to each other like the craziest kind of concepts or premises that we could kind of come up with. And Granny was kind of something that sort of came out of those series of brainstorms.
So is there any particular film or particular director in amongst the Ozploitation genre that has influenced you greatly or has inspired you in going into directing?
No, I mean, not specifically. I mean, I've wanted to kind of direct for ages. And I grew up loving, Tarantino and sort of Fincher and Wright and Spielberg and a lot of the sort of the main guys. But I mean, I guess sort of the film that really kind of opened our eyes to sort of this part of the history of Australian history. I mean, I feel like we're so scared in this country of our kind of genre filmmaking history. We don't really embrace our kind of our successes that sort of come from that horror genre kind of world. And we have had like a lot of films that have I mean, just like recently, the Babadook and Saw and things that have kind of come out of this country and had huge sort of international success, but that we never seem to kind of celebrate, I think, the way we sort of should. And when I saw Mark Hartley's Not Quite Hollywood, which is a documentary about, our Ozploitation past,
yes,
it was like, shit, like there's this incredible body of work of, not always the glossiest stuff, or not always, the most prestigious or intellectual stuff, but this incredible work of creative, brilliant, fascinating films that that have sort of been completely lost and hidden to our history. So I mean, we saw that film, and I kind of saw that around about the same time that I think Grindhouse was kind of a thing when Tarantino was doing the Grindhouse films with Robert Rodriguez, and so sort of collided, and we were all sort of like really excited about that idea of these kind of things, about this sort of type of genre filmmaking, and then to find out that Australia had this sort of secret history of it as well was kind of exciting. And so, you know, we went through and we watched as many of them as we could kind of get our hands on. You know, like, I mean, Turkey Shoot and Razorback and Patrick were kind of the ones that kind of stick in my brain as, you know, Stone being another one. They're kind of the ones that kind of stick in your brain as being like, oh, rad, like we were making some really, really fun stuff. So, yeah, I mean, just sort of looking at that stuff and kind of thinking, cool, like, you know, there is no shame in sort of making an Australian film that's like literally just there for entertainment, that's purely for the, you know, for the entertainment value and to kind of excite the viewer, and it can be a bit crazy, and it can be kind of a bit kooky, and there is potentially an audience for that internationally. You know, I mean, like Mad Max is like the perfect example of like this sort of batshit crazy idea that, you know, never stopped being batshit crazy, but like did end up being like a multiple $100 million film. That ended up being massively successful, you know, around the world. So, yeah, that's kind of where Granny came from.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that too. So, so what was it? What was actually the inspiration for the story behind Granny? Where did that spark from?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure if I can tell you exactly where it kind of came from. It was quite a long time ago that we originally sort of pitched the idea to each other. Originally, it was going to be a feature. And then, you know, I stopped working. We both stopped working in projection. We sort of went our own way. I went off to sort of more seriously become a filmmaker. You know, went off to film school and did the things you need to do. And you know, we would kind of pop in and we would sort of chat about this sort of Granny feature every now and then, and we sort of wrote a few treatments for it. But it never really got further than kind of a couple pages worth of idea. And then more recently, at the beginning of last year, I was chatting to a friend of mine, Tel Benjamin, who is the lead actor in Granny, and is also a filmmaker that I collaborate with quite a bit. And I directed him a bit on theatre stuff, but we hadn't really done much film stuff together. And I was like, hey man, like I'd really love for us to, you know, make a film together. And he was keen for that as well. And I said, look, there was a novel idea that a friend and I used to have about a granny that goes on a sort of a murder rampage. You know, would you be interested in something weird like that? And he was, and then so I went sort of called up Dean. I was like, hey man, like, remember that old granny idea? Like, do you reckon we could like sit down and kind of write it and sort of went from there? And it evolved a great deal from I think the original sort of feature idea. The original feature idea was much more kind of a sincere horror film, you know, and very much a little bit slower paced. Whereas this film kind of ended up being what we sort of imagined the third act of the original feature being, and kind of compressed into 15 minutes. And then the more we kind of worked on it, the more we kind of embraced that this should be fun and funny, and that's sort of what it ended up being.
Yeah, I guess that was the key thing that stood out to me when I watched it was the humour of the piece, because like it really infuses a lot of the Australian humour in there, literally right from the get-go too. Like you don't kind of pull your punches when it comes to that side of things. Can you tell me was that a deliberate choice, or was that something that kind of came together in the editing process?
No, we always, early in the writing process, we knew we wanted it to be funny. And my kind of theory behind kind of how to make the comedy work was that we would write it as a comedy and we would edit it as a comedy, but we would shoot, for actual production, we would shoot it like horror.
Yes.
And so my direction to sort of all the actors was like, you know, be as sincere about this as you can. Treat it like, you know, you are, like to tell, I was like, you know, treat it like you are actually the final girl in a sincere horror film. Like, Granny, we want you to be the Freddy Krueger sort of character. The direction was always like, be really, really sincere with the performances. We'll be really sincere with the way that we sort of design it and kind of shoot it. And then when we sort of cut it together, the sensibility kind of changed, and we tried try to time it in a way that we thought would be funny.
Yes.
So yeah, it was kind of like we knew that we wanted to be funny, but we had a hunch that it would be funnier if we kind of embraced it sincerely in a performance sense.
Sure. So, like, out of interest, what were the greatest challenges you faced in putting this together?
God, man, where do you start? Like, you know, it's a short film that was shot like almost exclusively at night. So we're doing like, you know, we did four night shoots, you know, back to back in like quiet suburban neighborhoods out in Blacktown, and you know, we had amazing support from the community. Not all the community were on board with the idea of us running around shooting stuff, you know, at 3 a.m. in the morning. But you know, like it's just, I think it was just, you know, we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of resources, and so trying to pull off something that we wanted to be kind of big and you know, we wanted to be kind of like an action spectacle.
Yeah.
With not a lot of resources in a short amount of time, when you're also like incredibly sleep deprived.
Yes.
That was kind of the chaos of it. But yeah, that was probably the main thing that kept us up.
Yeah, for sure. So, is there anything like looking back that you would change or reconsider at all, or that you there were too many restrictions around that you weren't able to produce what you were wanting to do, or are you fairly happy with the end result?
Well, I'm pretty proud of it. I mean, there's always things that go wrong during production and compromises you make and stuff that you kind of change and adapt to as you're going through it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm proud of the film. I think we were just over at Fantasia with it in Montreal, which
Yes.
is quite a cool sort of genre festival over there. And they've got some like amazing audiences. And you know, I went over there for the full month and ended up seeing, you know, a heap of kind of horror films. Quite a few that are actually programmed with the Underground, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But like it was, I think sort of a lot of those films really embraced kind of the gore and the kind of the schlocky, kind of explosive blood.
Yeah.
That we were kind of a little bit sort of like, oh, you know, maybe that's not really what this film is. And I think that if I were to remake it now, I might have kind of gone a little bit more in that direction.
Okay.
There might be a little bit more blood, a little bit more gore. We might
Sure.
have, you know, I don't want to give any spoilers. There are a couple moments where,
Yes.
you know, we kind of pan away from the violence, and
Yep.
I might have tried to, you know, increase the special effects budget and maybe actually do a bit of a little bit more in-your-face gore if I would do it again.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that in mind, you're talking about how this is now being touted out at the Fantasia Festival, and now the Sydney Underground Film Festival as well. Do you think this recent rise or I mean, horror's always been there. You know, it's always been part of the mainstream, but it's suddenly the last couple of years has been accepted as part of the mainstream. Do you think that has aided you at all in getting your short film out there?
I'm not sure, man. Like, I kind of feel like horror is always kind of pushed to the outskirts, and like every now and then, you know, a film will come up that'll make like a heap of money, and then for a little while, like that's kind of the film that everyone kind of wants to make for a while.
Yeah.
You know, the genre, like we're always, I mean, genre, horror and sci-fi, we're always a genre that's supported by, you know, a very dedicated, a very enthusiastic subsection and community, you know. And when you go to these horror festivals around the world, and you kind of see that we exist everywhere, but there is a very sort of specific community for that. There's a community that seeks this out. And every now and then, you know, you'll get like a film that kind of breaks through and kind of, you know, it attracts a wider audience. But I think these films live or die based on how much they're kind of accepted or embraced by that already existing horror fan community. So, you know, it's all ebbs and flows. I think that, you know, we were big horror fans. We kind of knew the sort of film that we wanted to see.
Yep.
You know, and we made it for us. And so I think that when you get a film that a bunch of, you know, horror and exploitation fans have put together in May, and you put it in front of an audience of people that also kind of respect that genre and respect the conventions of it.
Yes.
And are also like as literate in the genre as we are, you begin to have a lot of fun with it, and I think the audience can be really receptive to it, and they were really receptive to it when we have shown it in the past.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like when you mentioned as well, like, you know, at Sydney Underground, like we're in the WTF program, like even at some of like the horror festivals, like we keep getting put into, you know, like kind of like the left of center kind of programs a little bit.
Sure.
I'm not sure if like the mainstream festivals would really know what to do with us.
Yeah.
Weird one. That's all right. We're very happy, you know, being at underground festivals and Fantasia and you know, putting it in front of a community that understands what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to lean towards where the audience, you know, that you're playing to. So, like, quite rightly, we'll just reiterate that it is screening as part of the Sydney Underground Film Festival under the WTF section, which is a collection of short films screening at 11 a.m. on Sunday the 16th of September. I guess, like, just before we kind of bow out from our interview, it does, again, without giving too much away, there is an allusion to the fact that there is more to come with this film, which, again, kind of could be a cheeky kind of play or salute to the films that have inspired it, as we said at the beginning. But what's next on the agenda for you? Is there more of touting Granny out there, or is there other things in the works for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, we love Granny. There's definitely kind of like a little, you know, hint at the end that there might be more of that kind of universe. Yeah. Whether or not that is an actual thing that happens, or if it's just us sort of playing up to the convention of those kind of horrors. Not too sure yet. I mean, we definitely got ideas for what kind of more Granny could kind of look like. I think more in the feature realm than in a short film realm.
Sure.
But they're kind of in the back burner. We've got a couple other projects that are in different stages of development. Unfortunately, not horror. We've got a sci-fi, two sci-fi programs in development at the moment, sort of different stages of development. So that's kind of where our main focus is at the moment. But, you know, the nature of this industry is that it's something, you know, you never know when the opportunity is going to come, and if someone calls me up tomorrow and says, hey, man, like, we saw Granny, we want to make let's talk funny the next one, then all of a sudden that becomes the next project on the slate. So, look, we'll see. We've got a couple more festivals after Underground. We've got a bunch of screenings kind of coming up around the world, and some that we can announce, some that we can't announce yet. But hopefully the run will kind of go, you know, till the end of the year, and then it'll probably end up online. So people haven't had a chance to check it out yet.
No worries. Well, look, I wish you every success in everything that comes down the track with Granny and any of the other projects that may bear light depending on the way things go. Thanks for chatting with us on Surgeons of Horror.
Thanks so much for having me, man, and hope you get a chance to get out to the festival and check out some cool stuff.
Definitely want to, yes. Cheers for that.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.